Hello. Today, I would like to share something that's really been on my mind lately because I talk a lot about, individual issues and, a certain thing that's happening at home or a certain technique that we can use. I shared yesterday a video about how to help our children to collaborate to solve a problem as opposed to arguing all the time, and also about other techniques that I share, or insights that we think about here on this page. And we talk a lot about parents, you as parents or carers or fosterers or school leaders or youth offending support workers, all of these things, basically anybody who works with children. And I would actually extrapolate that further, and I'm going to today, into thinking about anybody who has been a child, which is all of us. No matter what your circumstances are from your childhood, whether they were wholly negative, wholly positive, whether they were in the middle, whether you had flashbulb events that shaped who you are, whatever it is, we can't live our adult lives and we can't support young people around us without acknowledging that we once were those children, teenagers, young people trying to find their place in the world. And I guess what I want to do today is to talk about a big topic which I've actually avoided so far, because I talked about in my video about the Arabic phrase khalini nifas, like let me breathe, and yakfini, like I'm full now. I talked about the nukta, which is the Arabic word for the like the heart, the soul, the nugget of truth. It's just the most brilliant, really short, 3 letters and a tamarbut at the end, just a really small phrase for the truth. Like the kernel is a really, really good way of translating that. And that, we have this kernel of truth, which I call, and many psychologists call, your authentic self. This is you. It's me. It's our children. We all have our authentic self. And what does that mean? Well, here we go into the realms of millennia of philosophy and thinking. But at the end of the day, without even going through all of this reading and learning about what is awareness, what is the soul, is there a spirit, all of this, in many ways it doesn't matter. It's very interesting, but I'm reading again The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and he says this amazing thing, and he says, learning all about the psychological workings of the mind will make you a very good psychologist, but it won't make you any happier. So, just shelve it for now. Just think, we have this nukta, this kernel of truth, this authentic self, and we are born with this. And up until about the age of 7, we have things put upon us. Our behaviour is modified by the way that our parents interact with us. You pull the cat's tail, you get in trouble. You learn not to do it. Your brother steals your toy, you hit him around the head, you learn quite quickly not to do that. Whether it's a conscious parenting method, a gentle parenting method that supports you to move away from that, or whether you just sit on the naughty step and you just learn, you know what, I'm just not going to bother doing this. There's no behaviour change in that, but our children learn, that's not worth my time. And as we grow, as we become teenagers, we have more and more of these extra layers put upon us. And a lot of the work that I do with parents is unpeeling those layers, and leaders is unpeeling those layers so that they can get back to who is their authentic self. What do they want to do here? How do they want to show up for their children? How do they want to support their teenagers? Do they want to keep control in their sphere, or do they want to lead with love, lead their teenagers into finding their own nokta, their own authentic self? and growing their skills in order to go into the world. It's exactly the same in the sphere of leadership. Do you want to be that manager who says do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, and then I will measure your attainment, and then you get paid more or you don't? Or do you want to be a leader? And there is a place within institutions for leading with love, and that starts with self-healing. So here is really the underpinning philosophy, that in our society, and I say our society, I mean basically the world, but it's very interesting when you look at it from an ethnographic point of view. The way that people bring up their children in the UK, the Europe, and the US, and the Americas, not all of them, is some of the South American countries actually do things a slightly different way culturally. When we look at different social structures, children are not raised in the way that they are, in the way that certainly I was brought up with in the UK, in the way that you were probably brought up with it's a massively flawed term, but should we say the Western world. And we manage our children in the West. We do. We manage them from birth. We manage them with behaviour coercion techniques. We are told, don't go to them, you let them cry, they're manipulating you. Dr. Shefali calls this brilliant phrase. Well, I had to Google it actually because I don't really know what Kool-Aid is, but I do know. She calls it the parental Kool-Aid that we've all drunk, where we come to this adversarial relationship with children because we are told when we are children, you're manipulating me, you're making me do things, and through your behaviour. And then when we become parents, we are told this again. Don't you go to them if they cry for milk, don't you give it to them. Which actually, when you examine it and you're out of what we call it, the tunnel of very young children, when you're out of that and you look back and you think, why would I not feed them when they cried? Because, well, it's childism. What is childism? Why are you banging me on about it? Childism is the term for when we treat children as if they are less worthy of respect than an adult. Now, so I'm going to say that again. It's for when we treat children as if they are less worthy of respect as an adult. Now, I did a post the other day and I said, has anybody got any phrases from their childhood, because I want to do some writing around it. And the response was huge. Do as I say, not as I do. Just do as you're told. The adults are talking now. Yeah. That one still frustrates me now. All kinds of these things. You live in my house, you live under my rules. We've all heard these, and they are endemic in society. And what they come down to is that children are not respected as much in, quote, Western society as adults. We talk at school, remembering I was a school teacher, I did work with the police. We talk about, but when you get a good job, as if childhood is merely a rehearsal for adulthood. You are learning how to be a person in your childhood, which is why you must do your homework, which is why you must do as you're told at school, which is why you must get the best grades. Now, children are different to adults. Everybody knows this. It not only is it obvious when we speak to them, but there are there's rafts and rafts of psychological literature to show that they can't handle their emotions in the same way as us. Their bodies and their brains are not as developed as adults. That is not childism, or not adhering to childism is not treating everybody the same. I guess here we have equality and equity. They are not children, and teenagers and young people are not the same, in the same way that boys and girls are not the same, in the same way that men and women are not the same. in the same way that people of an older generation and younger generation are not the same, and they must. And able-bodied people and not able-bodied, or differently able-bodied people, we are all different, and as such we need specific ways to interact with people or to be interacted with. This is part of living in a respectful culture. Childism is saying childhood is special. Childhood is a part of life. Yes, it's part of life on the way to, adulthood. It is not the timer we have to suffer through in order to get to adulthood. It is not only, the holy grail is not adulthood. Many of us often feel like adulting is a bit much sometimes. Just me? Don't think so. And that's because it is hard. So the idea of childism is that this is a way where we have, I guess, drunk the cultural childhood Kool-Aid, and we don't understand, or we have forgotten, unlike other cultures, that children are just as valid of our respect. And when we view somebody as just as valid and worthy of equal respect, we treat them very differently. We don't shout at somebody in our office who is different to us, because they are just as worthy of respect. And yet, when we are tired and annoyed, and say in an office situation, and a colleague is pushing our buttons, and we feel we need to walk away, we walk away. Or if we don't, there's some form of intervention through HR, But we put these systems in place when we are interacting with other adults, because we know that this adult is, yes, annoying, yes, frustrating, and they are equally as worthy of respect as us. And yet with children, we as society, we flip to shouting very easily. We flip to control very easily. In part, yes, because we are often unsure of how best to support them, and there are things we can do. This is part of my work with families, with techniques of literally what the nuts and bolts of what to do to support a child through their big emotions, of what to do to support a child who doesn't know how to move forward themselves, because again, we, through society and now as adults, we don't have these skills anymore. The way that we're brought up doesn't lend to them. We still, in many ways, we still adhere to children should be seen and not heard, and that doesn't necessarily mean the amount of noise they make. It means that we are not listening to our children and what their authentic truth is and what they are trying to tell us. That's childism. And when we grow to realise that children are worthy of equal respect, not the same, not expected to be treated the same, because they won't cope with it. They wouldn't cope. A 5-year-old won't cope with being treated in the same way as a 20-year-old. Doesn't mean you speak to them like babies, but it means that we do need to have some techniques of, oh, I see, you're feeling a really big emotion here. We need to understand as adults and educators that we need to support them in certain ways through these big emotions, and there are techniques. Keep an eye on the page, they'll be coming up, or obviously you could choose to do the neutralize the volcano hour and have a whole hour with me where we talk through your main issues and the ways that you can get over them within your household. So yeah, I just wanted you to just think. I'm really interested in any responses, if it's made you think, so yeah, we do things like that. So yeah, I wouldn't shout at a colleague or a person in the street, or even my mom, dad. I'm thinking of this from an adult point of view. I wouldn't shout at an adult, but I do shout at my children quite easily, and it's not really your fault This is why I do the work I do. There isn't any blame. It's awareness. And awareness that in our culture, we treat children as less worthy of respect than adults. And we treat childhood not as a period of time which should be treated with reverence and sanctity, as other cultures do. We treat it as a time where we prepare for adulthood. And that's partly what schools and schooling is about. And I think that's partly why we're seeing such a huge raise in home education and people investigating it within, certainly I know about in the UK, because I keep on the news there a little bit more, that people are really interested in this, because now they are schooling their children at home and they're like, what are they doing? Because some of it doesn't really make sense, and some of the ways that children are treated, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this, or else you don't get to go out and play. Sanctioning play, it's childism, and it is born out of love, it's born out of fear for their futures, and it is born out of a lack of skills in the adult population of how to deal with the needs of children, which is why we flip to control and management for their own good. I truly believe that childism and this approach was more rife it dates back to Victorian times and beyond. I believe that as adults, feeling disempowered and the issues that has come up with, and I'm seeing this time and time and time again in my practice working with parents. I truly believe that these inner wounds that we are dealing with now as grown-ups come from the way that we were treated as children, the way that our needs were not met, the way that our cries for help were ignored because we were children and it was deemed unimportant in the grand scheme of things, and we were fobbed off by our parents or our teachers or our society. And that now we as parents have a duty not only to heal ourselves from the wounds that were inflicted upon us in our formative youth because of childism, because we were not heard, because our authentic selves were not allowed to grow and blossom into who we could be. And we have a further duty to skill up and to leave this approach behind, to learn how other cultures do these things, and to not treat our children in the same way. Sounds very simple, doesn't it? I'm not quite sure it's so easy, but this is what I'm here for. This is why I do this work. This is what the whole movement of conscious parenting and of gentle parenting and respectful, that isn't a term, but I think of it as an umbrella term, the respectful parenting is leading us towards. And I challenge you today to think, did I experience this as a child? Did I experience childism? Is that why I struggle with not being heard now as an adult? How can I make sure that I don't pass this on to my children? And next time you have a flashbulb interaction with them, when you might normally have gone to a shout or to a naughty step, just take that little step back and think, am I treating them in a developmentally appropriate way and with the same amount of respect that I would treat any other human being of a different age? That's called being a leader with love. Please share your thoughts. I'm really, really interested because it's quite a big topic today. Thank you very much. Bye.